Hi, folks. I'm Jamie Hiles.
I'm Lydia Judy.
And I'm D. Hizzle.
This is Screen Bloody Movies, the podcast where we review a horror movie each week, go over the horror news, and, Derek comes up with new nicknames literally every week. Most of them are rap names, even though he has the rhythm of a blender.
That's so rude. The Sir Isaac Newtons are coming to a club near you.
A club, he says. He means like
we
a
rap
bar.
about gravity and apples and all kinds of shit.
Rap about apples and gravity. That's it. That's the expertise of the Sir Isaac Newtons. Stupid. How are you guys doing this wonderful evening?
Doing good. I just ate so much dinner. My belly's nice and full.
What'd you have for dinner?
I'm happy. Oh, chicken and Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
I had some
chicken.
They're like the best Brussels sprouts I've ever had.
Again.
The Brussels sprouts made the chicken look bad.
Sarah made some dirt pudding and I ate some of that before I came up here. Delish.
Nice.
All right. Well, I guess I need to tell you what I had for dinner too. So
what's on the menu?
We had like a ravioli lasagna that Quincy made.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
good.
just so we're clear, my dinner wasn't the dirt pudding. I just ate it. I had chicken.
Yeah, we know how you are, Jamie.
They're on to
sitting there
me.
with a bucket of dirt pudding. That's so good.
You don't get this bod by not eating dirt pudding. Let me tell you that.
The dad bod.
It's where it is. Own it. Guys, we have a great show for you this week. We're going to talk about Stir of Echoes, the 1999 thriller starring Kevin Bacon and directed by David Keopp. But first, we are going to do what we do every week and try to take over the world. No, we are going to hit the horror news. And kids, we have a lot of horror news this week. It was a busy week for horror news. And this first bit is actually pretty cool. And we may be having to take a trip sometime soon. Universal has announced that they are going to set up a permanent horror experience in Las Vegas.
What?
Yeah. So the Universal Horror Nights is now going to be a permanent experience in Las Vegas.
Whoa, okay. Why not, right?
Well, if they don't run out of water, we should definitely go.
It says it'll be an anchor tenant in the 20-acre expansion of Area 15, which is described as being an experimental next-gen mall. So, guys, when this thing gets built, we're going, right?
Yes.
I would love to go.
It'll be a field trip.
Yeah, I would love it so much.
It's a work trip.
It's a work expense. Absolutely. We will film the entire thing. Our entire
trip. If we're an LLC at that point, heck yeah.
Let's do it. I am down. I thought you guys would enjoy that because it like stoked me. I've always wanted to go to Universal Horror Nights. So
right.
I was like, there we go. Okay. Next, do you guys remember it probably was a few months back, we talked about they're making this prequel to The Omen. Do you guys remember this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it has been filmed. It's shot. Oh. And it might get a release this year.
Dang.
So that was fast, right?
That was fast.
It says, when asked about The Omen, when asked about it, it was said that it has finished shooting. The movie's been made. And, it's really cool. And it'll be out probably this year. It said, so hopefully it's going to be out this year. They're very proud of it. So the movie is directed by Antonio Campos, and a script by Ben Jacoby. So we kind of touched on this a little bit, but due to that, I mean, the quick turnaround of this, what are you guys feeling about the first Omen?
Yeah, I'm feeling like we're gonna have to watch some Omen movies pretty soon.
Yeah, we have to dig into those for sure. What are your thoughts, Derek?
Maybe this is an Omen.
Jesus Christ! I knew you were going to say that. I literally knew it when I looked at you and I said, "What do you think?" I was like, "Jamie, why did you do that? He's going to say it's going to be an Omen," and then he did. He did, dear viewer.
Whatever. I'm transparent. What can I say? But yeah, somebody needs to bring that up in the next couple weeks.
Maybe one of us will. Who knows? All right. Guys, Chucky has been renewed for season 3. We're getting more cool. Chucky.
Dang, I need to catch up on that.
Watch those, but it sounds awesome.
It is great. I have watched all of season 1 and most of season 2, and it's great. It's fun. It's Chucky. Love it. So the fact that they're coming back with a 3rd season pumps me up because we just love to see horror do good things.
Mm-hmm.
And especially a character like Chucky, who we grew up on and have loved for so long. So pretty exciting. So it should be airing probably, I would imagine. We don't have any release dates or anything, but I would imagine it'd be around the same time this year, this past season was, which was around Halloween. So we'll probably get another dose of Chucky then.
You know what's really great? Other than
What's that?
I'm sure I didn't see the latest Child's Play movie because it didn't look that great. But
you mean the remake? Are you talking about the remake?
It was actually decent.
I thought it was decent too. Yeah.
Was it? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to give it a watch and it'll change.
Yeah,
my mind,
it wasn't Child's Play. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But it was fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
But I was so glad that they've used the same actor for the voice, like through the entire.
Well, yeah, Brad Dourif should always be. I mean, look, Mark Hamill is good in the remake. We'll talk about that someday.
Yeah.
And he's Mark Hamill. He's Luke
Skywalker. Exactly.
But yeah, you can't. I mean, Brad Dourif is, synonymous with that. It's like when they're eventually going to recast Freddy, it's going to be rough for a while unless they do it right and we fall in love with the actor. It's still going to be a learning curve.
Mark Hamill as Freddy.
Man, I would.
Tom Atkins as Freddy.
Yes. Perfect.
Solved it, guys. Don't worry. Figured it out. Speaking of Elm Street, guys, our dear Mark Patton is actually going through some medical issues at the moment. Mark Patton, of course, plays our beloved Jesse from Nightmare 2. And he is currently laid up in a hospital in Mexico with complications from age-related ailments.
Oh.
And so there is a GoFundMe for him. The goal has been reached so far. The goal was 18,000. We are at 34,000 now.
Wow.
So that's great. But we will leave a link in the description if anybody would like to donate to that.
Wow. I hope he gets well soon.
Yes, me too.
Goodness. Sorry, I just think about him like at least once a day. I don't know why, but I just think about him and his life in Mexico, and I'm like, I want that. I wish I was him sometimes.
Maybe not now.
The day.
Maybe not now.
Life in Mexico?
I don't know. I just think it's.
No, I don't have a context of what you're talking about.
Oh, in his documentary, which you should watch for sure.
Scream Queen. Yeah.
Scream Queen it's so good, and I just love the idea of him just like moving to Mexico and falling in love and painting every day and just having a little exotic life. I just think about it every day.
So guys, our also beloved Kane Hodder has a new movie coming out. It is a slasher called Kill Her Goats.
Kill
He
her
plays
goats?
the Goat Man, and I will show you a picture of him.
Oh, please.
No, this sounds like a Derek movie.
It does.
It's
It has me written all
Potter
over
plays
it.
Goat Man in an upcoming slasher. It is when Audra receives her dream home as a graduation gift. Some uninvited guests quickly reveal displeasure towards the home's new owner. So I'm going to show you some clips of this. I mean, not clips, but there is a trailer. We won't watch that here, but I will share with you some images from it. Do you want to see them?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. There's the Goat Man.
Oh,
Looks pretty rad, actually.
that does kind of look rad. I'm not gonna lie.
Kane Hodder kills and Kill Her Goats. Love it. Love it.
Nice.
What do you guys think?
It seems interesting.
Sounds
We're gonna have to watch that trailer. Oh
Always
my
down
gosh.
for more Kane, right? Always down with more Kane.
I don't think Jamie heard that.
What'd you
I don't
say?
either.
I said that sounds pretty badass.
Oh, geez. Jesus. Criminy. I quit this episode.
I'm not gonna lie. One day my son's gonna watch this with his friends and they're gonna be like, "Your dad's a loser." Be like, "Yeah, you guys can leave. You don't get any pizza."
Don't worry. Our kids don't care enough about us to watch our stuff.
Yeah, they're not gonna watch this.
Yeah. Be like, "Dad."
Quit being cool. That's what I would pretend like they say. It is
Walk into his classroom.
set to be released
Pee Wee
sometime
Herman
in
dance.
spring this year. So that is on the docket. And then last but not least, I saved the best for last. Derek, off mic, I told you that we might have some Jason related news. And we have some Jason related news, guys. It has been announced that Adrian King is somehow involved in Peacock's Friday the 13th series, who plays Alice in the original Friday the 13th. But most importantly, there is an episode written by Kevin Williamson.
Really?
Yeah.
Context. I need some context.
Kevin Williamson is the writer, creator of Scream.
All right, now I'm impressed.
Yes. What are your guys' thoughts? I mean, does this Crystal Lake show sound like it's coming together?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was on board when they announced this thing.
Yeah. So a little bit more context here. It says that they are starting writing. They start officially writing in 2 weeks, and we'll have 2 scores to choose from, a modern one and a classic one. Kevin Williamson is writing an episode, and Adrian King will have a recurring role. So I don't know if she's playing Alice or if she is playing a new character. I would assume a new character. Alice is dead.
Right.
You know, Alice's head's chopped off after it's getting stabbed in the head with an ice pick. So she's gone.
Yeah. I kind of like that when they bring people back as different characters.
Yeah, it depends.
Kind of fun. It
Yes.
depends, but it's kind of fun. I mean, the most recent one I can think of is Christina Ricci in Wednesday, which I really liked.
Yep, sometimes it's good. Sometimes it can be distracting if the original actor is just way better.
Yeah. Did you see Wednesday?
I have not watched Wednesday yet.
Oh, okay.
No, I have not had time.
I don't think it's that distracting.
Well, that's probably fine. But like, you know, it could be distracting if, like, let's say that, I don't know, they make a new Nightmare on Elm Street and then they put Robert Englund in another role, and you're like, he should fucking be playing Freddy if he's in this thing.
Yeah.
But that wraps up the horror news, guys. Some good stuff in there. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to get more information on the Camp Crystal Lake. The more that comes out, the more excited I get. We're going to see, hopefully, Jason on the screen here very soon, kids. I think 12 years.
13? Because it came out in 2010, right?
In 2009. So it's been actually 14 years, going on 15 years.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy. Crazy. So let's segue from Friday the 13th into, picture it. It's the late 90s, 1999 to be exact. Right? You're going to your local multiplex. There's a thriller out that involves a kid who can talk to dead people. Which movie am I describing? Am I describing The Sixth Sense, or am I describing Stir of Echoes, which both came out the same year? Isn't that wild?
Gosh. Oh my gosh.
It is wild, but I don't know if I would. I don't know if that synopsis fits. It does, obviously.
Right. It's a little different.
No, it's totally
but
different.
It's definitely
the movies are different. The movies are different.
Like if you
But-
said that, people would think,
Yeah. Well, here's why I mention it. Is I was reading up on this movie today, and it released. It made $21 million at the box office, right? And it came out after Sixth Sense, so people were comparing it to The Sixth Sense, which isn't fair. It's not the same kind of movie at all. They're different movies, and both very good, I think, and I can't wait to talk about it. But they're linked forever because The Sixth Sense made like hundreds of millions of dollars that year, right?
Mhm.
It was the huge hit. This one came out, was the less of a hit. I mean, it doubled it was a double multiplier, but with marketing, it probably broke even, I would imagine. But it's not nearly as talked about as that other ghost movie. This one is way more intense and also a lot of fun. So let's get into it. Stir of Echoes. Lydia, have you seen this before?
I have seen this before. My good friend from high school, her name is India. Shout out to India. I don't know if she listens. But
She better. What kind of friend is she?
she's my friend that introduced me to this movie. She brought it over to my house for like a slumber party.
Nice.
And she was like, I got a movie that we should
Good
watch.
slumber party movie, this one, actually. This is a
Yeah.
really
you're
good slumber party movie.
definitely you're changing the perception I have of slumber parties.
Yeah, my slumber parties were like, bring over a outdated movie to watch.
Yeah, so that's what's funny is the context of that. I'll talk about it.
This
But
was in the 2000s.
fact that it was
so-
outdated for you because it was
Yeah.
you're much younger. So you're like, bring an outdated movie. And that's hilarious. I was picturing when you first said it, was like, oh yeah, just came out. You're like, let's check this out. And I was like, no, Lydia is really young. So she was like,
yeah. It had been out for a while when I saw it.
Derek, you picked this. When was
Yeah.
your first time seeing this?
I don't know. I mean, I've watched this movie. I don't want to say like a lot, but I've seen this movie several times over the decades, and so I don't know if I like the first time that I saw it. I guarantee that it was on VHS. Guarantee that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know when the first time I watched it was.
I do. I remember my first time watching this movie. It was after it came. Yeah, it was in probably 2000 when it came out on VHS. I remember renting it, and my stepdad, I'm pretty sure, rented it, and we sat down as a family and watched this one. Actually, I don't know if Zachary was there, but I know for sure that I was there, and I definitely watched it. And I remembered the ending is what I've always remembered the most about this movie. The digging stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, when you mentioned this, I was like, I remembered bodies and walls, and I remember digging, but I didn't remember much else. Like very little things here and there. And rewatching it was pretty cool because like started to kind of come back to me, because I don't think I've seen it since then, maybe one other time, but it's not like a movie I had watched multiple times. So it was kind of like a fresher watch, even though I knew how it ended. Getting there was still a lot of fun. And it has, I'll say, this great late 90s tone that I love.
Mm-hmm.
I love the
Real
tone,
quick.
and I love the way it's shot.
I
Yes.
want to get a little nostalgic just for a second,
That's
because
what we
the
do.
things that like my son, I don't know if we'll be able to kind of encapsulate this, but like a Friday night when you went to the video store and you rented like 2 or 3 movies to watch over the weekend, and like that was an event.
Yeah.
That was the thing. And now it like I don't know how he's gonna have like that experience. That makes me sad.
It's gonna be
Anyway.
streaming. Yeah, it's not the same. Yeah, we were in like the sweet spot, man. We grew up in the sweet spot of that because we got to see the transitions from that to DVD and everything else. But yeah, the event of it's Friday night, get off school, go to the video store, rent a game and a couple movies. So you had that for your weekend, and then you were that was it.
A new release, a new
release,
get a new release and a couple of the old ones.
2 old movies for like $1. Yeah. Oh yeah. And then so you walk through the horror section and say, which looks good. This one looks cool. I was like, ooh, Mirror of Death. That looks really scary. I don't know about that one.
Dude,
that's a scary cover. Night of the Demons.
In the video store looking for something to watch.
Oh yeah. And then sometimes we'd rent a movie and it'd be like Scarecrow Gone Wild, Derek, and we'd be like, "This is on the list of shitty movies." Great.
Yeah, I mean, when you have like a ranking system and that's kind of like a hobby, you're gonna run into some bad ones on purpose.
That's true.
On purpose, yeah.
On purpose.
You're like, this one looks bad. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah, this looks terrible. Let's give it a shot.
Let's see how shitty it really is.
Yeah.
That used to be one of our fetishes back in the day, wasn't it, Derek? That's one of our games that we used to do. We used to just
wasted hours that you won't get back. They weren't wasted, man. I had a lot of fun doing it with you.
Yeah, and that's what's fun about it. It just was more hanging out,
I had a lot of time. Yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Watching these shitty movies with you.
Definitely. But this one, I wouldn't consider a shitty movie.
I wouldn't.
This is one we can talk about. So, where do you guys want to start?
The opening scene. We got to start with the opening scene because it's one. Kevin Bacon definitely gets that towel wet. First off.
Oh, so you're judging his parenting on bath time?
No, I'm judging the continuity because.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
Pull him out like that towel's definitely not wet, but he definitely gets
that doesn't matter.
Tub. But you start off with this young kid. He's sitting in a bathtub and he's talking to an imaginary friend. My son
not only is he
plays
talking,
all the time in the bathtub, but
he's humming "Paint It Black."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the tie-ins that this movie has. But and then you've got our main character Kevin Bacon sitting in the background playing his guitar. So you're kind of getting a vibe for what he is, and so he comes and gets his kid out of the bathtub and starts to get him dry, and this kid who you think is just talking to an imaginary friend or playing with some toys just looks at the wall that you can see because they changed the transition there, and he asks, "Does it hurt to be dead?"
Yeah, it's actually really effective and really cool.
It
especially
really is,
because what he does is he says, "I need to ask you a serious question," and his dad's like, "What's that, buddy?" And he says, "Oh, can I wear these pajamas?" And have like an argument over which pajamas to wear. So you think that's a serious question. Then as soon as Tom, which is Kevin Bacon, walks out of the room, he looks at the wall and says, "Does it hurt to be dead?" And you're like, "Oh, cool. Not going over to your house."
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be the weird kid eating the paste in the corner. No, I'm kidding.
What do you think of this opening, Lydia?
I think the whole time I was like, is this Derek as a little kid? That kid looks like he could be Derek. Like,
oh my gosh, at least he had a dad, I guess.
So cute. Oh my god.
But
this is the idealized version of Derek's life.
Yeah, what could have been? I could have been a contender. But anyway.
Oh, jeez. That was a rough one, Derek. That was a good one. Shots fired.
Derek, did you look like that as a kid?
Yeah, I had a monk haircut. Nothing's really changed, honestly. Yeah, I looked like that. You know what? If I can find an old picture, I will put it up right here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the monk haircut was a Joeyism. That's
the natural growing pattern of my hair. It grows into like a helmet. I don't know.
Joey used to call him Haru, from Beverly Hills Ninja.
Gosh.
I mean, Joey can be kind of a jerk anyway, just like in fun. But yeah, no, I mean, it was true though. You let it grow out naturally, and it turns out to be a helmet. I don't know. Until I got my rat tail, and then that's when the cool Derek.
The cool Derek came out. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's when he went from Derek to D-Man.
That's right, and eventually D Hizzle.
Part of the Sir Isaac Newton. See, it all ties back. It all ties back.
The evolution of Derek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's not where I saw this opening going. But took a turn on me, guys. I've lost control of my show. No, this opening is pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And it introduces kind of a couple things, like this whole just opening bit, because it introduces the fact that he's talking to ghosts. We also find out that Kevin Bacon's wife is pregnant, and he doesn't know, and then he's shocked at first and bummed out, and you kind of like, what the hell, dude? And you find out that he's like trying to start a band again, trying to do his music dream that he didn't get to do, and he's a lineman, works on the phone lines. Not a lineman in football. And we're introduced to the sister character who is like a witch. So she's like, she's like in the paranormal. Yeah, and she's the one that said, "Oh, you're pregnant." Immediately knew, and so we set up all these characters. What do you think of this character setup stuff?
It's pretty good. I like it. I think all the people are interesting, so I was like really drawn in by everyone's different like personalities, and the fact that they just jump in with like the sister telling him that she's pregnant, was like, oh, we're in it. We're in the drama right now.
We're in the middle of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. And you're right. It does draw you in. And also all of the actors throughout the movie, just all across the board, are excellent.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a bad performance in this movie, I don't think.
Right.
And so they draw you in because there's some faces that you recognize, right? So you're kind of already kind of endeared to certain ones. Of course, we recognize Kevin Bacon. This is his second time on the show, right? Friday the 13th was his first.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't done Tremors yet.
We have not.
Although I've probably watched it 10 times since.
I'm pretty sure I've got the whole Trimmer collection when we get to it. So
yeah, those are we'll get to those for sure. But let's talk about Kevin Bacon first. While we're here, let's just talk about him. What do you guys think of his performance in this movie? Because I think he's fucking excellent.
It's so good.
It is so good. It's so like the way he that scene where she says that she's pregnant and like his initial reaction is, well, what do you think? And he says, bummer. Like, I really feel like his performance comes through in this movie in total, but like, I think he did a really great job in it. I felt that whenever he said that. It was very honest. It felt like being in that scene and the moment, and yeah. Yeah,
I like it too. I mean, throughout the whole movie, because we get to see like an arc and a character. Like, we get to see him in different phases of this mania that he ends up going through. Like, we see him pre-hypnosis, then we see him immediately following the hypnosis, then we see him deep into it. So we see all the range of it, and it's a pretty good performance, I think.
I agree.
So let's just talk about the hypnotizing scene. Let's just talk about it, because I love this scene.
Yeah,
I love the imagery. That I like the way they portray it. It's like we actually see what he's seeing. Because in most movies it'd be like you're getting sleepy, you're hypnotized, and then that's kind of the plot kicks off. But this, we actually see what he sees. And I love the whole open theater. You're in an empty
Yes.
theater.
The theater.
So
That's
cool.
cool. That was a cool scene for sure. The effects that they did were pretty neat.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not like the best effects ever, but they're just
Yeah.
like visually pretty cool. So
Yeah, they're visually arresting. Yeah.
hmm
Especially like the cool him floating in the chair
hmm
is really neat. And then when you see like the words on the screen, and she's like,
Blurry
the
letters,
big
yeah.
blurry. Yeah.
Could you guys tell what it said before it
I
showed up?
I could.
I could
started
too. I was like,
I was
think
like,
it says sleep.
sleep. And I was like, sleep. And then she's like, it said sleep. And I was like, I knew it. And then, guys, I don't know what the hell happened after this bit. Like, the next thing I know, I woke up and, like, my hand hurt. Like, I got pricked in the hand.
Yeah. Jake was saying the same thing. You and Jake. Oh my gosh.
That's
Like
why
the
we're
I just
brothers.
got hypnotized.
We're not
Have
brothers for
either
no
one of
reason.
you ever been hypnotized or been attempted to get hypnotized?
Ooh.
No. Have
No.
you?
Nope.
I was someone attempted to do it. Like they came to Ball State, and like they picked people in the audience, and I got to go up there, and I was trying so hard to follow every direction that they were giving to me. Eventually, they tapped me and was like, "Yeah, it's not working. You go." But there were people.
That's
Yeah,
crazy. That's so interesting.
yeah.
I saw I've seen people be hypnotized one time, random time. I just saw some people get hypnotized.
What? Where the fuck were you?
I was at the library.
What?
I swear
What kind
to
of
God.
library are you going to?
Public library?
The public library. Yeah, it was like a kids show.
Ah.
We took I worked at daycare for a minute, and we took these kids, and like they were just hypnotizing these kids to like do funny things. It was a blast.
That's kind of irresponsible, but that's fine.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
That's hilarious. No, I've never been hypnotized. Nobody's ever attempted it on me.
I didn't even know that was a thing until that at that library experience.
Oh,
And I was
really?
like, I was so freaked out. I was like, anybody could just like tell me to like start acting like a chicken, because I think that's like the go-to thing you do. You know,
Yep.
these people were like, act like a chicken. These
You know
kids are running
why?
around.
It's because it's the power of suggestion, right?
Mhm,
And everybody knows what a chicken impression is.
mhm.
Like if you would say, impersonate Salvatore Dali,
Mhm.
you wouldn't know who that is unless you're really hypnotized.
Unless you knew.
I mean, even if
That's
you
why.
didn't. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I have a hard time believing in it, but
Of course.
there
Yeah.
are people who believe that it's true.
There's also
What, hypnotizing?
Yeah, hypnosis. Yep.
Yeah, I think hypnosis is definitely a real thing.
Like you can get
Right?
subliminal messages, 100%. Like those are like proven.
I think
things.
it's more. I think it's more power of suggestion than it is actually
Mhm.
being under a hypnotic spell.
Right.
Well,
but I mean,
and-
when it comes to certain
Go.
things, you know, obviously they can't like hypnotize you to like do certain things, but yeah, like power of suggestion. But that's hypnosis, right? Like you're in a deep state, like a trance state.
Kind of. A lot of it isn't. More of it is people want to be hypnotized. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does.
So like you're wanting to be hypnotized, so you're like, yes.
But do you
this
think
is
that
working
they're
for me.
faking it?
Subconsciously?
Or do you think that they're like tricked? You know, I feel like people could just be
Yes,
tricked.
People are tricked too. Yes.
Wait. There is a website that you can go to, and I believe that it's like getting hypnotized. So you would tell them a movie you want to forget, and they will try to erase that from your memory so that when you watch it the next time, this is a true thing. It'll be more like the first time watching it anyway.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't
want to
if
do
the-
that.
I don't either.
I
Maybe
don't
a
wanna
real
be
I
hypnotized.
don't know.
scrappy
I'd be
movie.
like lumberjack man. Lumberjack.
You don't want to forget it, because if you do, I'll make you watch it again. So you
That's
Yeah.
true. That is true. That's a
That's
dangerous thing.
Because then I could be like, "Hey guys, we should do Lumberjack Man." You guys would be like, "Who? What is that?"
What is lumberjack?
First time
That
watching
sounds
it.
interesting.
You know
But I
what's
don't-
interesting though, that we're having this conversation is like the movie that I wish that I could forget and watch again would be The Sixth Sense.
Well, yeah, because then you'd see, well, I mean, if you were Drew Barrymore from 50 First Dates, you'd be good to go.
Right? Yeah.
He's a ghost every time.
Yeah.
I can't believe he's a ghost.
Oh, they actually do watch that in that movie, don't they?
Yeah,
I just remembered that.
Yeah,
That's
Dan
funny.
Aykroyd has seen that movie 750 times.
So I'm
I
gonna
don't
have
mean
to
his
look
character. I mean actually Dan Aykroyd. He's watched that movie that many times. He's a big fan.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's true. I'm going to look it up, and if it is true or not, I'll put it in here. But when she says congratulations, because he volunteers, so to kind of set this up to draw us back in, Tom calls bullshit, and he was like, "Do me," and she was like, "You're hostile." So she eventually agrees. He agrees, and she puts him under and goes through this thing, and we just talked about, and so he comes out of this, and he's like spooked. And he's like,
well, yeah,
did you do
crying. And, yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, I can't believe this. You were faking it. And she's like, he's like, what did you do to me? And she goes, congratulations, you're part of the 8%.
Yeah.
And then she explains that there's 8% of the population that's extremely vulnerable to hypnosis. And, they give him a hard time because he talked about getting bullied and all this stuff. And he's crying. And she sticks it. Go ahead.
It's kind of similar to, having like first sight, right? Like, I mean, second sight in the sixth sense. Like certain people are supposedly born to be more susceptible to the supernatural and that sort of thing. So it's implied that he has been. His mind's he's not, you know what I mean? He's not tapped into it, and he passed it off to his son, who is very mindful of it. And yeah, that's a good setup. A really good setup, actually, because it takes this ordinary guy. Well, as I was watching this, you know what a movie that I pulled, there's very similar parallels to a degree, just with the horror bent, is Close Encounters.
Really?
Yes, especially towards later in the movie. His arc. So like he gets possessed with this idea, right? Just like, Richard Dreyfuss does in Close Encounters.
Yeah.
He gets obsessed with it so much so that instead of building a mashed potato model in his house, he starts digging in it. But that scene where they're sitting in he's also a line repairman. So he's a blue collar worker for the city. So there's a lot of very cool like parallels there that I picked up on while I was watching it, especially towards the end when they're sitting at the kitchen after he's dug the holes and he's pouring them orange juice. Just that whole kind of setup is very reminding me a lot of Close Encounters.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's intentional or not. It has to be somewhat intentional, but it's subliminal. Or subliminal. The power of suggestion. But I thought it was a pretty cool thing to point out.
I haven't seen that movie since like the 80s.
You have to watch it. I watch it at least once a year. It's a stone cold classic, right, Lydia?
Right.
So at the beginning of this movie, there is as they're going through the credits, it appears that this is a adaptation of a book, a story.
Richard Matheson.
Master of Echoes. Yeah. So one day I'll have to read or listen to the audiobook and see how closely related they are.
Richard Matheson is one of the all-time great science fiction writers. He's written multiple episodes of The Twilight Zone. I Am Legend is based off of Richard Matheson's novel I Am Legend. He's like a god of the sci-fi world. Also wrote the adaptation to some Stephen King books, or the scripts to some Stephen King books and stuff like that. So it's a pretty cool, I read the production of it, and I read that, he was a big fan of this book, David Keopp, or David Cope, when he bought the rights to it and decided to make this into a feature. And then he brought the script to Richard Matheson and said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And he was nervous about it, and he really liked the script, really liked the stuff that he did with it, the changes that he made. Richard Matheson also is what Steven Spielberg's Duel is based off of as well. He wrote the adaptation for Stephen King's Duel, which is Spielberg's first, or it's not Steven Spielberg's Duel, his first film. So, guys, this is some crazy shit starts happening to Tom, and shortly hereafter, he sees a premonition for the first time. Sees a ghost, a woman. He has no idea who it is. This whole sequence when he is, so like his wife wakes him up in the middle of the night to have sex, essentially. And as they're having sex, he starts seeing these images. And it's like, he sees like broken fingernail. Oh, that's just so gross, right?
Every time I watch this movie, every time because it happens twice, I think, in this movie, it always gets me. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. So he's seeing these images he doesn't understand. So he needs to like get up, and he starts to like brush his teeth or whatever, and he sees like a blood in the water. And then he sees his tooth all messed up, and he pulls it out. What do you guys think of that scene?
It's so not. That gets me worse than the fingernail, honestly.
It's pretty messed up.
Your own tooth. I was like, why would you pull on it? Why would you try to, like, he like physically is like pulling on that thing, trying to get it out.
Because it's cool looking.
Leave it in there. Leave it alone. Like, go to the dentist.
That's a good. That's a good bit, right?
It was a great effect.
And so he goes downstairs and he's like, I'm going to watch TV, because also he said every time he like has these visions, he gets really thirsty. So he's like drinking a lot of water and stuff. And he goes and sits down to watch TV, and he sees her on the couch beside him. And he tries to, he can't hear her. So he mutes the TV, and then she's gone.
He does.
And that starts.
She says something. She says, "You can hear me," I think, or see me.
Yeah.
She said,
and he can't quite make out what she's saying.
Yeah, his interpretation. Yeah.
So he that's the catalyst to set off our story, basically. So what do you think of this setup?
Love it.
Because we're set up a mystery, essentially.
And
so that's what our story is about. So they get a babysitter. In this scene with the babysitter, so like the scene leading up to the babysitter is really cool, where she's on the phone and her son's talking to the ghost, and he recommends a babysitter for her.
Yes, he's like, why don't you ask so-and-so? Like, she's like, what?
Yeah, who told you that? And he's like, oh, what's her name? Samantha told me. And she's not paying attention. Derek, you have kids. Do you just not pay attention to what they say a lot of times?
No. And here's why. Because they will stand there and be like, Dad, 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 Dad. They'll just repeat themselves. So no, eventually I give in. I'm like, what?
Yes, but if he's over in the corner just talking. If he's over in the corner just
to ignore them.
If he's over in the corner talking to himself, do you listen in, or are you just like, he's talking to himself?
No, sometimes I do, because I love his little imagination. Not all the time, but yeah.
It's really because you're like, is he fucking talking to a ghost?
No.
Have you ever thought one of your kids was like seeing a ghost or anything like that?
So, not seeing a ghost. So, and mainly it's because of like the hobbies that we have. But like, Clark still has an attachment to our old house, right, that we used to live in, and he frequently is like, "Daddy, I don't like the new house." And every
Aw.
time I ask him why, I just want him to say, because of the ghosts.
Yeah, or it's like
But
the little girl that stares at me at night.
Yes.
yeah. Well, and dude, so he's super like the smoke detector in his room, the battery was going out and it would like flash red, and so like he zeroes in on that, man, and he's like, it's flashing at me. I'm like, it's trying to let you know that you're safe. Every time it does that. Anyway, so yeah.
Well,
It's crossed my mind.
Speaking of red flashes, that's what we get here. So after they leave the babysitter with him, who they've never used before, like every time Tom looks at her, he sees just like like the whole screen flashes red.
Mm-hmm. You get like a buzzing sound, like
yeah,
like a neon light, kind of.
yeah. So this happens multiple times before he leaves. So they're going to the high school football game, I guess. Which, by the way, this is Chicago, so like this high school football game is like a big deal.
Semi-pro, yeah.
They're like freaking wanding them, at the whole bit. When we grew up in a small town in Indiana, and high school football, we just had to get like our tickets and walk in, basically.
Right.
And there was never a huge rush, was there?
Nope.
Just we go in and then we're like, I can't wait to see us lose by 25. I mean, that's usually the experience I had.
Yeah. So I will say about although basic in nature, it's a really effective effect, because
yes,
it's his interpretation that something is wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
and it's immediate. The first time he sees her, when he opens the door, and then as they're exiting it happens again. And he's new to all this.
Everything is reminding him. He sees the brake lights on cars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He sees the police siren. And as they reach the stadium to play or to go to this football game, which his neighbor's son is on the team. A couple of his neighbor's kids are on the team. They're walking towards the thing, and he gets a sense that something's wrong because she hears him talking in the monitor. And he starts talking about how he's seen Samantha, and he's talked to Samantha. And she's like, what are you talking about? So she grabs him and takes off, and he senses that she's gone. And which, as a parent, would be horrifying, right? Can you imagine?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
So his gift is like guiding him to where she is. Like the flashes pretty much are guiding him to the direction he needs to go. And they end up at a bus station, and we think she's going to kidnap the kid and run off. Yeah. But we come to find out that she's taken him to her mother, who works at the bus station, because her sister has been missing for about 6 months. Mm-hmm. And her sister is mentally challenged, slightly slow. And she's been gone for 6 months, and he was telling her, oh, I've talked to Samantha. Yeah. So she's trying to get answers. Definitely not the way to go about it. She is a teenage girl, but you're not going to get any more babysitting jobs. I could probably safely say. Right. What do you guys think of this sequence?
It's intense. Just the thought that she could have just taken their kid, that's just a scary thing in itself. But then she kind of freaks out. She doesn't believe them that they haven't seen the girl, She's like, they definitely did something. Like, they know something.
It's them. They know. Yeah.
Which, I would definitely assume that,
Yeah. Yeah. How else would you explain it? I mean,
yeah.
And what do you think, Derek?
Yeah, it's having kids. It's so scary. Right. And at first, Kevin Bacon and his wife were on the same page. Like, why did you do this? And as soon as they give their side of the story, Kevin Bacon backs off.
Yeah.
But the wife is like, I want to press charges. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And she's mad.
What she should be.
Yes.
Yeah, but then he tells her like why, and
Because that girl
I think that's
showed
where
him
it
the
really-
picture
Yeah, showed him the
of
picture.
Samantha, and he recognized her. So he
Yeah.
was like, "Oh shit, we're not pressing charges. Like,
Yeah.
we need to just go
We
right
need
now."
to figure this out. Something's going on. Something
Yeah.
bigger is going on. And then the fact that I love that cut to them saying, like, he knows. And then how do we even find her? Well, he told me to. Wait a minute. Who did you say? And it cuts, and they're just staring at him, and he's sitting on the floor playing with his toys. I'm like, so tell me, buddy, who told you this? And then he like does that like demon voice.
What the fuck was that about?
Oh my
Guys,
god!
I don't know
was
what that's
weird.
about, but I don't like it. I would not be a fan of it.
They never explained that either.
Well, and did she hear it, or it was just Tom?
I think it was
Because
just Tom, maybe.
He definitely reacted to it way different because he was like, "Do that voice again. Do that voice."
And
he
she,
like got
yeah, and
obsessed.
he didn't know
say
what she
anything.
was talking about either. He was like, "What?" So it might have been just Tom.
I was
So
like,
she goes,
"What?"
"Talk to
the-
me." You're like,
Yeah, like that's
Which-
such a weird thing.
Which
giving
would
me
make
goosebumps
sense.
right now.
Which makes sense
Giving me
because it would
goosebumps.
be Samantha talking through him, saying, "Talk to me."
Why would she sound like that?
I mean, that's just because it's scary.
That's
Because it wouldn't have been scary if he goes, "Talk to me. I'm Jennifer Morrison." And like,
Oh
not effective.
man, we missed it. Well, or we didn't miss it. We almost skipped over it, but it's a really interesting part. Let's finish this, and I'll
No,
bring it in.
go ahead. What is it?
There is a scene where Kevin Bacon goes downstairs, and I don't know if it was like right after he saw the ghost or not, but he goes to walk up the stairs, and his son is standing at the top of the stairs, and he goes, "Daddy, you're awake now."
Yeah.
Or something. And
Yeah.
it's like it's a double meaning because like he woke up, but he realizes his dad is now aware of what he is going through, and it's a very powerful but small.
And he touches like the side of his head.
Yeah.
creepy.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Daddy, you're awake now.
Yeah, if my son ever says that to me, giving him up for adoption.
All right, buddy, pack your shit. You out of here.
Here's your little knapsack on a pole.
Stork or nut, you out.
So this is
Sorry,
where
I'm
basically
looking up,
from that point on, Tom, like he is obsessed with it. Like he quits going to work. He just sits by the couch because he wants to figure out what this is because it won't let him go. And they have like another neighborhood gathering. So he starts like questioning all of the neighbors. You know, he questions the one neighbor who has the star running back as the son. And then he questions the other neighbor whose kid is also on the football team. And he's just kind of like, popping like headache medicine. He's like, "So you guys know this girl?" And they're like, "Why are you asking about her?" "Oh, I don't. I just was, thinking about her because her sister babysitting for us the other day." And you're like, "Huh." So on your first watch, if you didn't know what happened, you're thinking, they're like, "Man, he did it. Something's weird about him."
Mm-hmm.
Once you know what it's about, they're looking at him because they're like, "What does he know?"
Yeah, how does he know that? Yeah.
How does he know what is going on?
Well,
what does
he
know?
immediately calls over the other guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, he's asking these questions."
Yeah. He's asking about this. It's
and then they bring
what? Then what?
And the son, they bring over the running back, or one of, and he knows something, like, because he seems nervous.
Yeah. And then the fight breaks out, and so he doesn't get any closure or answers to this. And then he has one of my favorite scenes in the movie. This super fucked up, like, premonition. Like he wakes up on the couch, and he gets like he wakes up on the couch, puts on his shoes, finds his boot underneath the thing, walks upstairs, sees a note from his wife saying, "Hey, I took him to the park, took the kid to the park. We're on a walk. So he, goes downstairs and he sees his neighbor in the house. And he says, they're going to kill you, Tom. You and, what's his wife's name?
No, he doesn't say they were going to, or he
no,
says
they're going to, right?
No, he says they were. So it's the dialogue here is just
Maggie,
ever so
yeah.
slightly different than in that scene,
Yeah.
because he says they were going to kill you, as if he was still in the scene. Because I rewound it because I was like, did he say they're going to, or they're going to, or they I forget how it was phrased.
The exact same thing.
Maybe I'm no. Instead of they were going to, or they're going to. It's a slight difference in the question, or whether it's a statement.
See, I thought he said,
he says
I'm
they're
going to
going
kill you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So
He
Frank
says they
says
were
here,
going to.
they're going to kill you and Maggie both is the quote that he says at this point. They're going to kill you. They're going to kill you and Maggie both is what he says. And then he walks out. Because later in the movie, he says they were going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, he says they're going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're muted, by the way.
Maybe I'm getting it back, but the dialogue is different, right? Between this and the ending.
Yes, because right, it wouldn't make sense for him to say they were going to kill you at this point. Because
You're correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just did not convey it very well, but yeah.
No, it was horrible.
Anyway, but I did catch the difference in like what he says at the end to here, like more or less a warning or a statement. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So he has the premonition of Frank saying they're going to kill you. You and Maggie both is what he says. They're going to kill you and Maggie both. And he's like, what? So he goes out and he sits on the porch or in the front stoops and he follows him out and he's like, where's your wife? Is she around? And I'm going to go see what's up with her, basically. And he doesn't answer him. He doesn't respond to him at all. He's just sitting there on the steps. So he goes to his house, Frank's house, opens the door, knocks on the door and opens, and the son is standing there. And he's like, has something behind his back, and he's like, hey, you want to see what I have? And he pulls out a gun and shoots himself. And shoots himself in the side and rubs the blood all over his face.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool image. Rubs the blood all over his face, and then Tom wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, whoa. Then he goes to grab his shoes, and he realizes, oh no. And he's like, please don't be underneath. And it's under the same spot. He goes upstairs, the note's there, and he's like, oh my God. He sees the same male person and the dog. And he hears a gunshot when he gets there. So he breaks into the house, and the son has shot himself. And now at this point, we don't know why, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of led to believe that it's because his dad's kind of puts a lot of pressure on him on his football, right? Because we do get that sense.
Yeah, and so far up to this point, the dad has just kind of been like a total jerk, like in general, So
yeah, he's just kind of like a sleazeball. Yeah.
The scenes with him and
he's always like hitting on women or like looking at women all the time. Yeah,
Derek, there's a line that I know you loved when she said he would put his dick in a warm cup of soup.
Yeah, in some soup if it was still warm.
Yeah, that's it. In some soup if it was still warm. That's hilarious.
Yeah, there's a couple of lines that he has like against him, but that where he's eating chips and he's just staring at that girl. This is a great trick with the camera. And he's just staring at that girl's boobs, and then like ever so slightly turns and you see his wife looking at him like, you disgusting POS.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she says something about it, that when she says the soup line when they're walking. And she said, Frank says that men have an erection at least twice or for 2 hours a day. He says 3 for him, and she goes, "Why would you tell me that? Now I have to have that image in my head."
Yeah.
Which is great.
Boy.
So what do you guys
comment about how his son has gotten more tail at 14 than he did?
Yeah. He's chasing down better
do.
tail than I had. And you're like, oh my God, this guy.
You give men a bad representation in this.
Bad rap,
in this
bad
world.
rap. What do you guys think of this whole premonition?
It's so jarring. Like, I don't know. I didn't realize it was a premonition, right? You're like, he just kind of like sees the guy in his house and then he goes down the street and you're like, oh, this is just a day. Like, I didn't even realize it was a premonition at first. So when he wakes up, you're like, oh my gosh. Like,
Yeah. And
That
Frank's
was
not there when he
freaky.
goes downstairs. Yeah.
yeah. And the thought of like a kid like pulling a gun from behind his back and you're just like he's like, I don't really like guns. They kind of make me nervous. So I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, yeah?
like
This will
that's
really
such
make
a
you nervous.
feeling.
Yeah. And then he shoots himself. Yeah.
Yeah, like that is so disturbing.
Yeah. What do you think, Derek?
No, I agree. Like that little interaction. He's like, "Hey, you want to see something?" And he's like, sure." Then he's like, "Oh, what do you they make me nervous." Well, this will really make you nervous. I don't know why he does this, man.
To
He
his
points it
side.
at to his side instead
Yeah.
of anywhere
Well,
else. Like,
I think maybe because he wanted to, who knows? Maybe he didn't want to shoot his face. Maybe he wanted to have a chance to live. I don't know. Maybe it was a cry for help. Who knows?
yeah. Although Kevin
Who knows
Bacon
what
is
people do, what
definitely-
they do when they're in that
Right.
situation.
Yeah, not the person to have in a crisis situation, because he's just like trying to give him CPR like sideways, and he's like, "Help!"
Yeah, well, I think he's like stopping the bleeding. I think that's what he's doing is like holding the wound, trying
Like
to
he
stop
was
the
doing
bleeding.
Much ado
But-
about nothing except for yelling for help.
I mean, I guess pre-cell phone days, I guess that's what you did. You just hollered for help till somebody
I
came.
guess. Hopefully
It
the
worked,
mailman's
'cause-
walking by.
Yeah, it worked because they got the ambulance there. So that's good. What do you guys think of the scene where Maggie and little Jake are walking through the graveyard?
The graveyard, great
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah,
I
go
love
ahead and
playing
talk
in
about it.
graveyard. I'm kidding. I don't play in graveyards. I did one time, but
Well, we used to go to Hookman's graveyard back in the day.
yeah, we went
We
sledding
all
through a
three did
graveyard one time.
What? You went sledding through a graveyard?
Yeah, we like hooked up a sled to a car and we're like dragging each other like through the graveyard, like you do.
Like one does. Like one does.
Yeah. So, but anyway, no, this is a good scene, and you see this random police officer who steps back and looks at him,
Yeah.
and then he steps back in line, and you don't think much of it.
Tell me, did you guys think that he was a ghost when he started following him?
At first, yes.
Kind of did because
Although it would have
but
made
the
sense where he wasn't lying.
yeah, that's what I was like. I was like, well, he was in the middle of their line, so I don't think he's a ghost.
Yeah, but
Here's the thing,
So dumb.
it kind of makes
I
you
s-
think that, though. Yeah.
I see where you could have interpreted, because I've seen this movie before. I don't think that really was an association that I had, but you know what it really reminded me of? It reminded me of The Shining.
The Shining.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking the
He's
same
definitely
thing.
he's definitely the Dick Halloran of this movie. But what I'm saying is like because it could have, and especially if you went like Sixth Sense logic, which is he's in line with the police officers because that's what he wants to see, right? And everything.
Mhm.
So when it first happened, I was like, because I haven't seen this movie since 1999 or 2000 probably, and I was like, is he a ghost? And then he started following. I was like, nah, he has to be a real person. Then when she turns around and interacts, I was like, oh yeah, he's real. But I was like, he must be psychic too, because then when when he says, I'll see you, Jake, and he's like, see you, Neil. His name is Neil,
Mhm.
and I was
That
like,
was so cute.
so cute. I was like, I love this kid. He's such a little cutie, even if he does look like a young Derek.
There are worse things in the world to look like.
That's
Yeah.
true. You could look like current Derek.
Oh my gosh.
That's
Jamie.
mean.
It was a layup, man. You popped it up there, and I was like, should I do it? Should I do it? I've got to do it, Spike.
The answer is no.
I apologize. You're a very handsome man.
You should have been like, man, he's my friend. Maybe I shouldn't do that because he has feelings and he could get hurt. It could happen.
You know, there's no crying in baseball or podcasting. Those are the rules.
Yeah.
Unless you're on like a Barbara Walters podcast or something. I mean, R.I.P.
Ironically, we were talking about her today.
Where are you?
So, full circle. Yeah.
Nice. Probably that psychic energy from the movie rubbed
Well,
off on us.
I told my wife that she had passed away, but she didn't know. And then we were like, how old was she? She was 93. And then it got me down this. Well, since you brought Barbara Walters up, I might as well tell you the whole thing because it's kind of deep. And I was just like, I'm going to get philosophical on you. This is my wife. I'm sure she's just like, But I was like, just imagine, like, there are some people who go their entire lives and barely venture outside, like, the vicinity of their hometown. Then you have this lady who lived this extraordinary life and traveled the world and spoke to some of the most influential people that have ever lived. I was like, it's strange.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
This has been the Philosophical Hour with Derek Lemaster. Philosopher's Corner.
The road less traveled.
That's true. Oh, you're going freaking Robert Frost on us, eh?
I did.
Two paths diverge in the woods, and I take the one less traveled by. Some Robert Frost. I can read sometimes. So,
oh my goodness, we're way off.
This plot line with Neil kind of goes nowhere. That's one of my criticisms of the movie. If I
totally
have one,
does.
It kind of does, but it's not really. It's more an exposition dump, but it's not like, you would think that he would like have a bigger part. He's literally there as an exposition dump to say, this is what's going on, here's how he's feeling, and then you never see Neil again. And I kind of wish he would have had a bigger role.
Yeah, and it kind of leads to other problems with like the girlfriend or the wife or whatever her name is. I forget. Maggie.
Yeah.
She does not follow instructions well.
Well, it's because I love her for that because I like how she's like very independent woman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like and she does know her husband. She's like he won't come. He would never come. But you need to tell me so I know what the hell is going on here.
Honestly, that might
but
be.
Then
the
she doesn't tell him anything.
Well, we don't know. She might have told him off camera. We don't see that.
If it's off camera, then we're gonna assume she didn't tell him anything. And then she like gets mad at him again, even though she fully knows and believes we know that she believes that he's going through something.
Well, yeah, but that still doesn't change. So
she's like, I'm gonna call the cops. And it's like, wait, what?
Well, she's gonna call not on him. She's calling the cops to look into this. Yeah. That's why she wants to call the cops, not on him.
Okay. And she is mad at him.
I love their banter back and forth.
Yeah, and but you have to think about it. Even if you understand, that doesn't mean you still won't get pissed off at people's behaviors.
Right.
If you 100% understand what they're going through and why they're going through it, if they have behaviors that you just still can't fathom, it's still going to annoy you and it's still going to set you off. It's still going to trigger you. And so she's trying her best to deal with this, but, she's only human and she's a mother and he's not working and there's just all of these things.
And she's pregnant, yeah.
And she's pregnant and he's digging a giant fucking hole in her backyard.
The entire backyard.
Because he visits the sister again and she tries to close the door, but instead, Samantha's still there and the words on the screen say dig. So it's either he has to start digging or big Mudvayne fans.
I dig it, man. I dig it.
It's such a stupid joke. But anyway, So he starts digging. That's what he does. And this is where, like I was saying, those Close Encounter vibes were.
Mhm.
Because it's the same thing. Like Terry Garr doesn't understand. She doesn't understand. And this one's a little different because she at least has backstory and some context, but she still doesn't understand. And there's a great bit that I love where after he has like that really great acting scene where he like loses his shit kind of and says,
Yeah.
What? Keep doing it. And he goes through his whole spiel. And she's like, I've known you for 8 years. We've been together for 8 years. And you have never talked to me like that. Never. And she's like, and if you ever do it again, like it's not, I'm not putting up with that shit. And I was like, respect. Like, I agree, especially
I think that
go ahead.
Probably so in this, she's like, when she says, let's call the cops, and he stops digging. He's like, go ahead, say it out loud. I want to see how it sounds,
Yeah,
like,
that's
it
a good
sounds
point.
absurd. And
Yeah.
I see ghosts, and they tell me to dig.
And the ghost is telling me to dig, so there's a body somewhere on my property. There's just nothing.
Yeah.
He has to find the body. If there's no body, there's just no case.
Or any type of evidence, you know what I mean? But the thing that pisses her off is that he goes, this might be the most important, because there was another scene earlier in the movie where he goes, this might be the most important thing that I've ever done in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, it's the scene, because what he says earlier is that his life is ordinary.
Yeah.
At the beginning,
yeah.
like he's like, I wish I wasn't ordinary. So then in this scene, he literally says what you were saying. This is the most important thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And
I
you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, that's a dig against her and their family and the life that they've built that, and this thing is just consuming him. Right.
And that's what, like, that. I think that's what really pisses her off and triggers her, because it hurts her, because it's like, this is kind of the second time he said something similar, like, I don't want to be an ordinary life. It's like, it's just like my life's meaningless.
Yep. It's insulting to everyone who's in your life when you say things like that.
Yeah, it is. It is. So there's a scene where they're at the table. She gets a fax, and it's because he apologizes to her and everything. And she gets a fax, which is hilarious, by the way.
I agree.
They have a fucking fax machine in their house.
Yeah.
She gets a fax from her brother, who is saying that her grandma, who raised her, is very ill in the hospital again. And she tells him that, and he says, oh no, she. And he cuts himself off. And she knows. She knows that he knows that she's gone. And then the phone immediately rings. And as soon as it rings, he, she's like, what? And he leaves because he knows. And then she gets the bad news that her grandma passed away. So, like, did she visit him? It's so crazy. It's like, just like, this door has been opened and he doesn't know how to control it, but he just knows these things.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes out and she says, you knew, you knew.
Yeah, I would chalk that one up to like intuition more than we have no idea. This is just my interpretation.
Yeah. The way he reacts in that scene, it says a lot, because at first they're like yelling and fighting and arguing, and then like this happens, and he totally is cool-headed about it and is like, I know, and I'm sorry. Yeah. And just, it is what it is. And it's sweet that he is like finally calms down.
It is. Well, what I like
doesn't try to push anything any further.
What I like about their relationship is that they're like a good couple together.
Yeah.
They have a really strong, loving relationship. So it's not like they're like fractured and fighting all the time. It's like they have tiffs, but they're there for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so she, of course, wants him to be there for the funeral, but he can't go because he's got to find this body. It won't leave him alone until he does. So she takes Jake and they get out. They go to the funeral. So he decides, he goes down because the water main's not working. The hose isn't. So he goes down to the basement and he realizes, oh, I need to dig in the basement. And so he starts, axing it, and then he decides to go to the store and he gets a fucking jackhammer. Like a big old jackhammer.
Great.
And it's really funny when he's like dragging it into the house. You see it falling and stuff, and he's dragging it in, and you see all of the neighbors reacting. The neighbors that know are reacting.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of the house, because it is funny when he sees, he's like, it's a rental. Before he realizes that he's digging her up, he's like, oh, it's a rental. And then Frank's wife, looks at him curiously and goes in. And he's still not finding it. So he gets a phone call from, or he calls Maggie to check on it. And this scene, I love it. It cracks me up. He has a whole conversation with her, tells her that he's feeling better, that he's done digging, and she's like, I'm going to come and pick you up. He's like, no. She's like, well, I'm on my way. I'll honk when I get there. And he walks into the next room. We transition to the next room, and the entire dining room is the floor. The floor is just torn up.
Yeah. Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh man, he's in. Like, how would you even explain? Like, it's like,
he gives it a shot.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I got this. But yeah, he does give it a shot later. But he ends up finding the body in the basement.
Yeah, he does.
Behind the wall. Very Nightmare on Elm Street 3 style.
She could have given a different suggestion other than dig.
Yeah, maybe like wall.
Maybe like basement. Basement.
Yeah. Because
you don't really. He didn't have to dig to get to her at all.
Well, he did have to dig through the wall.
Yeah, he just hit the wall and it fell apart.
His interpretation would have been it was the exact same interpretation I would have had. I've been like,
but it also could have been.
Yeah.
It also could have been he's new at this and he's not getting the right translations too, because that's what Neil says. Remember, he said like he's like in a tunnel with a flashlight, and that flashlight's only occasionally working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then she said, "What about Jake?" And she said, he smiles and said, "Jake has a much bigger flashlight."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, who knows? But either way,
should have asked Jake. Which there's a funny scene when he's digging up the backyard, and she comes out at first.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm digging." And then she looks, what's he doing? He's helping. Oh, don't worry. I'm pretty sure it's not over there.
Yeah, don't worry. It's not over there. Yeah. There's also a bit that's really funny. Well, really cool. Not funny, but really cool when he's trying to figure out the Paint It Black. Like there's a song. Mm-hmm. He's trying to figure it out. He's trying to pick it out on the guitar. And Jake's just sitting there, and he stands up and walks over and like moves his hands.
Oh my God.
To where it's supposed to be.
I was dying.
It's like, and he's just like,
try this.
Try this, Daddy. And he's just kind of like, okay. Because we also, before we get to this big reveal, the end, there's another moment I want to talk about, which is that whole set piece where Maggie's going to get in the bathtub. And Samantha's in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she freezes the water with her hand, so that way she has to go down into the basement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the whole bit with Jake and the TV is great.
Yeah.
It's so cool that she just appears on the screen, and then he keeps turning it, and she keeps turning it back to Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah. Even though the mom called it The Mummy.
Well, he was watching The Mummy before that.
Oh, okay. I was
at the beginning, he was watching looked like a Hammer mummy movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, just 5 more minutes. I love him in this scene because she's like, will you be fine for 10 minutes? He's like, whatever. He's kind of lays back. I love that.
You know what's really great? Since we've gotten sidetracked 5,000 times this episode, it is really great to like see a kid's personality like start to come through. right? Because I can just imagine Clark having the type of attitude that kid had in that scene and was like, whatever, and like falling back. Oh my gosh. It's amazing. It makes you, if you're paying attention, like just smile. Anyway.
Yeah, it's really funny.
That kid is super cute.
Yeah, and he's
I
really
like
good.
how he's very nonchalant about being super psychic too. Like
Yeah.
he's like very chill about it.
Yeah, it just
Well,
is what it is.
Whatever.
Because at one point, he realizes that his mom, Maggie, is not comfortable with this conversation, or maybe at this point, maybe she doesn't believe that the two of them are trying to have a conversation. And he was like, Dad, I don't want to talk about this. It makes mommy upset or something.
Yeah, it scares
lines.
mommy. I don't want to talk about this because it scares mommy. Yeah.
How sweet was that?
Very good.
Yeah.
So in this basement, he finds the remains of Samantha buried in the wall, and he touches her, and we get the full backstory to this.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys know who Samantha's played by, right?
Yeah, who is
so
that?
familiar?
It's Jennifer Morrison from Once Upon a Time.
Okay.
She's
Wait,
the
is
lead.
she like One Tree Hill or something?
She's in a bunch of stuff.
I was gonna look this up and I just didn't get a chance to.
Jennifer Morrison. She's in Once Upon a Time. She's in Dawson's Creek.
Oh, okay.
She's in House. How I Met Your Mother.
House.
Yep, she has an entire.
God, that was bugging the shit out of me.
She has an entire arc on How I Met Your Mother, where she dates Ted, like a 13-episode arc.
Nice.
Then, of course, Once Upon a Time, she plays the lead.
Yeah. Dang, that was really bugging me.
I know her from House.
Yeah.
Yeah, House for sure.
So, as soon as I saw her,
I have to say two things about this.
Okay.
First of all, this was the one time that I gasped out loud in this movie was when he hit the wall. I was like, I just fully jumped like at him just hitting the wall.
It scared you for some reason?
I don't know why it just scared me. But so that was the only point in this movie I was scared. Yeah, exactly. Like it was like someone just hit my own wall, like I was like, don't hit the wall. But and then the second thing is that girl looks so much like my cousin at that age. Like I was like, that could have been my cousin playing that part. Like with her glasses and like just her hair, exact look.
That's great.
Yeah.
So as soon as I saw her, I was like, man, she looks really familiar. Yeah. And then I was like, is that Jennifer Morrison from Once Upon a Time? Because Sarah used to watch that all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've got to look it up. So I looked it up and I was like, yep, that's who it is.
I just kept thinking Bones, and I was like, no, that can't be it.
No, but what? It's funny that you mentioned that because Sarah all day today was watching Bones.
Really?
So yeah, she came into the living room while I was watching this. Sat down with me for a few minutes and was talking. Like I was talking to her. She was leaning on me, and then it was the scene where he pulls his tooth out, and she's like, "I'm gonna go in the other room."
Amazing.
I was like, "You don't want to watch it?" She's like, "No, I'm good." I was like, "All right." So, what do you guys think of this backstory? The mystery. So disturbing.
Yeah, just disturbing.
Upsetting, right?
Yep.
So
pretty upsetting. So I remember being really, really affected by it when I was watching it in like middle school or high school or whatever.
Of course. Yeah. It's upsetting still. Like just the thought of it is very upsetting. Like there's this girl who has a mental disability, and these two football players call her over to this abandoned house to basically sexually assault her and worse, and she doesn't know any of this stuff. And she's like, he's like, "Oh, you're so hot. You're so beautiful," and all this stuff. And it's like, here, take off your coat. And then she said, "Well, you can kiss me if you want." So then he starts immediately like groping her, and she's like, "Not like that." And then she says, I want to go. I want to go home. And she scratches him, grabs his, pulls his hair. And then the other boy comes up with plastic to like keep her from screaming and puts it on her face and suffocates her after she falls and her tooth gets knocked out. So we see the tooth getting knocked out. We see her trying to crawl away and her nail breaking. We see her suffocating, and it's really cool. When she dies, we see her point of view leaving her body.
Oh yeah, the tunnel
Yeah.
vision kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That is a cool,
Great choice. Great choice.
cool choice. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. So he sees all this. After he holds her hand, Tom sees all of this. So he goes over to Frank's house and he's like, look, you're going to need to come with me. You need to see this. I'm giving you the option before I call the police because he did some bad things. So Frank comes there with him and they go down in the basement and he shows him and he's like, well, what, you just have a body in the wall. You don't, that doesn't prove anything. He's like, there's hair in her. She's holding hair in her hand. It's going to trace back to the boys. And he pulls out a gun. And he's like, what were you supposed to do? These kids have their whole lives ahead of them. And one mistake could ruin their lives. She was already gone when they called us. There's nothing we could have done for her. So, this was a choice. You could have, I don't know, gave her parents fucking closure, obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
But, so he's like, what are you going to do with the gun? He's like, get out of here, Tom. And he shoots to make him, because he's like, well, I'm not going to leave you. And he shoots, and Tom's like, fuck that. He goes up.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hear a gunshot. So let's break this down. Let's break this apart. What do you think of this scene with Tom and Frank first?
It's intense.
It's very intense.
It's suspenseful for sure. When he starts like breaking down and crying, I was like, damn, this guy is a good actor.
Very good. Yeah, he's awesome.
Holy cow, it got me. I was like, dang, I genuinely feel terrible for him. Like he has like been living in this hell kind of,
Oh yeah, definitely. And you know him from tons of movies.
Yeah.
That's Kevin Dunn. He's of course in Ghostbusters 2, remember? And Hot Shots and Chaplin and Beethoven's Second and just tons of movies. Godzilla.
Remember
him in Godzilla? He's the general.
That was my favorite movie.
Mm-hmm.
Great actor. What do you think, Derek, of this bit?
It is very powerful. It's revealing, and ultimately, it's sad. Like, I understand that you have a vested interest. Your son committed this heinous crime, and your first thought would be to try to protect them, but at the same time, like they killed a person. They killed a girl.
Yeah.
And you as somebody from the outside looking in, what led up to that. Why is this girl in this room with you two boys? And she's, she's mentally maybe not as equipped as most. And so, yeah, man, while it is tough, you got to call the police in that scenario. But
yeah,
and definitely, I think his intent was to commit suicide down there. I just think he chickened out.
Yeah. Well, so what's really great is
he knew though.
Well, he knew
what was going to happen.
Yeah, he knew they were coming. I think,
and he had a choice to make.
Yeah. So I like earlier in the movie when they're talking about her, there's this one guy that Frank hates. Yeah. This neighbor that is always like a shithead. And he's the first time we see him, he's like, "Get the hell out of here!" Who invited this guy? He's a fucking idiot. And so then later, when he's talking about the kid or talking about her, the guy calls her an R word.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, don't say that. Don't say that. She was a little slow. And he like starts defending her. Mm-hmm. And like is very defensive of her. It's almost like then we find out later in the movie, it's because he just is living with this guilt for 6 months that he just doesn't know what to do with, it's eating him up. So meanwhile, the other son saw him through the window, saw him through the basement window, so that he discovered the body. And that's So he, of course, goes in there and he gets a knock on the door, and it's Harry and Kurt, the other father son, and he's just like, trying to keep them from coming in. They walk in anyway. Meanwhile, Maggie is on her way to the house, and before she leaves, she's like, "Come on, let's go, Jake." And Jake says he's afraid to go home because of the feathers. And she's like, "What does that mean?" And he's like, "I don't know, just because of the feathers. I'm afraid of the feathers."
That cracked me up. His response was like,
Yeah.
"I don't know. I just saw feathers.
I just saw feathers and I don't like
That's
it.
what-
I'm afraid of the
that's it."
feathers. And
so
so
cute.
she's about to leave, and he gives her the purse that has the knife in it. And says, "Mom, don't forget this," because he knows she's going to need it. There's basically a fight breaks out. He's trying to like smooth things over with them. He hears a gunshot down in the basement, so we think that Frank is done. He committed suicide. And they come up and attack him. And he's going to shoot him in the head. He rolls him over on the carpet. They're going to roll him up in the rug. And he puts the pillow behind his head. This guy has done this before.
Right?
This guy has done this before.
So he's
thought about it.
He was either former military or former police, because he is kind of giving a backstory about like his life. He's like, you get a pension, you end up owning 3 houses on the block. But he's
that's right. I think he is former police. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's maybe not the most straight and narrow police officer.
Yeah, he's done this before. So he's about to shoot him in the head, and Maggie honks the horn because that's what she said she would do, and it gives them pause. They can't do it. They'll get caught. So she's walking up to the house, and she sees the lights just start to go out. And she's like, well, that's not normal. So she goes into the house, or goes back into her purse and grabs that knife from the purse. And when she goes in, she's attacked by them. And she stabs old boy right in the foot, which allows Tom to hit the other guy. And then before they can shoot him, Frank comes up and guns them both down. And after he guns them down, he says, "They're going to kill you, Tom. They're going to kill you and Maggie." And he walks out just like he did in the premonition, making it all full circle. And goes down, and he sits on the stoop, and he says, "They're going to kill you in cold blood. I couldn't, that's not right. And I couldn't let that happen. And this used to be a good neighborhood, a solid neighborhood," which is what he introduces it as at the beginning of the movie. And while this is going on, Tom sees Samantha in the window. And then she's outside, and she puts on her glasses. And then she puts on her coat, and she looks around and is herself and happy. And she walks off and disappears. What do you guys think of this climactic bit here?
I liked it. I thought it was really intense. Like the friends, the neighbors coming over, and like the whole conversation that they had about it, of him just like sweating bullets,
Yeah,
just being like, I tore up the floor, and hopefully that's all they think about. But he knows that they know that he knows.
Yeah.
So he's just like, oh, just waiting it out.
Yeah, trying to like just talk him down, smooth things over. And you just know it's gonna, because he sees his hand in his pocket before he enters, and he's like, well, I can't have you guys come over right now. And he just forces his way in, essentially.
Yeah. Ugh. God was like, close the door.
I know. Go outside.
Yeah.
What do you think, Derek?
Yeah, super intense. I love the explanation. He's like, Tom, what are you doing to my floor? Well, you won't believe. I mean, there was water everywhere. The water main broke, and I couldn't get to it from the basement. So I had to tear up the floor. And then he goes, the water main's in the backyard or something like that. He's like, I know that now.
Yeah, I know that now.
But yeah, no, it's super intense. And not necessarily a redemption arc, but at the end, the guy did the right thing by Tom and his family, and
by everyone. I mean, yeah, he was feeling the guilt. He was feeling the guilt
for sure. Yeah,
and his son is in the hospital,
dying. Maybe, yeah, we don't know. He says he could make it. He couldn't.
We don't know if he lived or died.
Yeah,
and I love the closure that the girl gets. Samantha, yeah. And I love the fact that they show that she's uncovered. She's gotten her murder uncovered, and the people are coming to justice. And it's like, she has closure to.
Yeah, she's free.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten.
I like the way I like the way it's handled a lot. I like the way that they handle showing us her freedom. Showing us that she's
her
free.
Unfinished business is.
Yeah, the way that it shows her just reclaiming her identity is basically what it is, because she reclaims her glasses, she reclaims her coat, the things that made her her, and she walks down her neighborhood. It's kind of sweet.
I love there's a scene where they're moving out of the house, and they're going back and forth to pack up their stuff in the U-Haul, and there's a scene where like the two of them, Maggie and Tom, like pass, and they touch each other's hand, and it's very touching, and it's they're gonna
that was a little moment.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really sweet. It's showing you that they're still okay.
Yeah. His little tattoo on his arm.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah. Really good. And then the ending, they're driving to their, through the neighborhood, presumably to their new house. And as they're passing by all of these houses, Jake hears all of the voices of all of the dead.
Yeah.
He can hear all of the ghosts, and he plugs his ears, and we end. What do you guys think of that little bit?
I was like, oh no.
Yeah. It will continue.
Yep.
I can't wait to see. Maybe one day they'll make a sequel that ties into this.
A real sequel.
There is
a sequel.
Yeah, it's not a real sequel.
What do you mean it's not a real sequel?
It's one of those. It's one of those sequels in name. Like, it's one of those movies that started off as another movie.
It's got like Rob Lowe in it.
Yeah, they shoehorn in Jake as an adult, so that way for a small cameo, that way it connects to it.
Okay.
But
I don't even remember that part.
Yeah, Jake is like the psychic, but that's really all that it has to do with it.
Yeah, I don't even remember that part.
Because it was originally. I read up on it.
Future.
Yeah, I read up on it. It's a sci-fi original movie, first of all, guys. Okay. I mean,
it's so weird that Rob Lowe is in it.
This was you have to remember, this was pre-Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec was his big comeback.
I guess so.
Because his career was kind of over there. Yeah, so I've read about this, and it was what does it say? It says here premiered originally titled The Dead Speak. It was written and directed by this guy and is a sequel to Stir of Echoes, although its only connection to the previous work is a similar premise in the inclusion of Jake Witsey, who had a key role in the original but is only a secondary character here. So it's was one of those kind of like the later Hellraiser sequels, which we'll get to, which were separate movies, and they're like, you know what, should make this a Hellraiser movie. It's like, fuck it, let's throw Cenobites in.
Man, they really missed out on a good Dr. Sleep sequel kind of thing.
They still could. Kevin Bacon's around.
Yeah, because no one associates that second one with this movie. I completely forgot that Jacob.
I mean, most people don't even know it exists, to be honest.
That's also true.
The only reason I knew
is
it popped up at the end of watching it. Yeah, as a recommendation. Exactly. I was like, and I remembered seeing that one. I was like, nope. So, guys, that is Stir of Echoes. What are your thoughts? Lydia, let's start with you.
Dang it. Let's start with you, Jamie. I want to know what you think.
You want to start with me? You want to know what I think? We're breaking the formula if we do this. Okay. I really like Stir of Echoes a lot. I had a lot of fun with this. I thought it was very suspenseful, very tense. Also, it was funny at parts. It had It's a crowd pleaser of a horror movie. It's a real like late 90s crowd pleaser, and I fucking love those late 90s studio horror films. I'm glad that we're getting some again. But like, and I like, the indie stuff and the dark stuff too, but I also like these big crowd pleaser horror movies. I feel like this is one. I think the performances across the board are great. I don't think there's a bad performance. I think the story is really solid. I think the direction is actually really good and really cool. I think there's some really bold visual choices and a lot of cool character development. And I think Kevin Bacon really carries this movie really well. So I think I'm going to give Stir of Echoes, I'm going to give it a 7. 7. It might, it's almost an 8 because I really do like it, but I'm going to give it at least a 7. Lydia, now you go.
Okay. I think all those things as well. I think it's, for being from this time, I feel like it's unique for what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how many movies have this kind of plot? Like, there's probably countless movies that have this similar thing, but this one stands out and is unique and good. I think I'm gonna give it a 6.5 because I think there are some things that are like kind of cheesy, but like you said, it's like it's a crowd pleaser. Like you can't watch this and walk away. And I mean, there's a couple little things, but it's like because the performances are so good, I think really, and the direction, it's memorable,
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it a 6.5.
What do you think, Derek?
Yeah, you guys made some great points. I thought the acting is really solid. I love Kevin Bacon's performance. I think the actress who plays his wife does a really good job. The kid does a really good job. The supporting characters, the people who are, the bad people in this scenario.
Her name, by the way, is Catherine Irby. Just so you wanted to give her a shout out. Yep.
But I watch this movie every couple of years. Every time I see it on, and if it's been a couple of years, I will watch it. I do enjoy it. I think it's a fun movie. I like the plot a lot. So I'm going to give this a 7.5.
Yeah, so about what I was thinking, yeah. Yeah, it's a really good one, guys. This was a good pick, Derek. Because it's one that we're not overly familiar with, but we've all seen. So I really like that. Also, quick note on Catherine Irby. You know her from What About Bob? She plays Dr. Martin's daughter. And you know her from Mighty Ducks 2, where she plays Miss McKay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Most people will probably know her from, what was it, Law and Order?
She was also in Law and Order Criminal Intent as well. Yes.
Yeah.
But I know her specifically from those 2 movies. So I was watching, I was like, she's very familiar. I know this actress. And then as soon as I realized it was from Mighty Ducks, I was like, there's ice to freeze, let's play. Yeah. Nice. Zachary and I, my brother Zachary and I, watched D2, The Mighty Ducks, so many times I could probably fucking quote that movie still. When we were kids, that was the funniest movie, one of our favorites. We were just like, I mean, we liked Heavyweights and we liked The Big Green, but, Mighty Ducks 2 was on a league of its own in those categories of kids' comedies. Heavyweights is still great, too. That's a good one. So, guys.
Oh, I have to say, before we go any further, that Jake really wanted me to tell Derek specifically that he really enjoyed this movie, and he said good job on picking this one. Just had to throw that in there.
He teased us with this really crappy movie, so he redeemed himself.
He did redeem himself at the end.
Well, tell him that I said thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, this was a good pick, Derek. This is one of your better ones, I think.
I do nothing but good ones.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Lydia has a bone to pick with you about popcorn still.
Yeah.
That's Lydia's, I think, least favorite. Well, I think
Diamond in the Rough, that one.
But
It's hard to say, and I don't want to go back and watch them to see which one I dislike more.
She's like, that's not a hobby that I have.
It's a hobby that Derek and I have.
You guys are alone.
Yeah.
In that one.
So, guys, who would Tom Atkins play in this movie?
Thrill me. Thrill me. Thrill me. Thrill me. Thrill me.
Detective, thrill me.
I know exactly who I'd cast him as.
Who?
I would cast him. Well, maybe. I don't know. I was going to
Second
say
guessing?
Neil,
Mm-hmm.
because you could
He'd
put
be
him as a
good. Well, that's
mentor
what I was
character.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's actually also the only black guy in the movie, so I kind of feel bad about taking him out.
Mm.
He's the only person of color.
Well, he could be one of the neighbor fathers.
He could.
Mhm.
He could actually be the horn dog one, except that people would like accept it more.
Yeah,
That's
his
a
wife
good
would be
point.
like another.
I could
bites the
actually
dust.
see him giving a good performance there.
Yeah,
This guy had such a great performance.
great,
It was
though.
like,
Yeah.
oh,
the other neighbor he could play too, but that neighbor's kind of like less memorable. Maybe he'd make it more memorable.
yeah, there we go. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll make him.
He could play
That
that
guy.
character just because he'd make it more memorable.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah,
I like that. Because I don't want to take away that guy's performance. It was so good.
yeah, he's really
Holy
good.
cow.
Yeah, and we don't want to replace Kevin Bacon either, who's excellent in this movie.
Oh, no.
Mhm.
This is one of his best performances, I think. We'll have to get to Hollow Man sometime soon, because that's a good performance too. It's an unhinged one. So, guys, it is my turn to pick next week's movie. And I
What's it
debated
gonna be?
on this. I've debated on this all day. I've been chewing on it. And I was like, there's a couple different ones I was going to do. But I am going to, one more time, break the trend. So I'm going to do what I kind of did my last pick, and I'm going to pick a new movie. And we are going to do 2023's Sick.
Oh, gosh.
I had
On
an
Peacock.
inkling that you were going to pick that one based on a
Yes.
text message you sent to the group.
Yes. Well, I debated on it because I was like, well, maybe I'll just Here's the thing. Here's the dilemma we're in. If we do, we're definitely going to have to put a big spoiler warning because it just came out.
Right, yeah.
So we'll have to, obviously there's a disclaimer, we need to make sure we put it at the beginning of all of them, but these are spoiler episodes. But so we could do that, or I could pick an older one and we could do Sick a couple weeks later. What do you guys think?
Well, you picked it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right.
Why
So
not?
next week we're going to do 2023's spoiler review of Sick. So be sure to watch it. It is on Peacock right now. It came out on Friday the 13th. And it's a slasher movie directed by Peter Hyams and co-written by Kevin Williamson. So it's set in 2020 pandemic times. So it's an interesting one. I can't wait to discuss it.
Okay.
Anything else you guys want to touch on? Go ahead.
I have one question.
Yes.
What platform did you watch this on?
It's on Peacock. It's only available on
No,
Peacock.
not Stick. Storbeckos.
Oh. Tubi.
Yeah,
Tubi.
so I watched it on Plex. Right,
Oh,
I've actually got a Plex server, but there were periodically 150 seconds of commercials,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the same commercial just repeated in a loop, and it was in Spanish, and it was about Ram trucks, which I already own, so I'm not going to go out and buy a new one. And I'm like, every time it came on, I'm like, oh my God, can I skip past this? It was driving me crazy, man. I mean,
That's funny.
Did you watch it on
On the brink.
Tubi, Lydia?
Yeah, I did. I think I was getting a couple bounty commercials.
Yeah, that's what I was getting, bounty commercials. And they weren't very long. They were like really short.
Yeah. I did want to skip them though.
Yeah, I wish you could, yeah. But hey, it's a free thing, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Derek, do you have a story for us tonight?
Man, right before we jumped on here, I was trying to think of a story, and let me think. Did I tell you about the one where Jay ran somebody off the road in a semi?
Yes.
Yes.
I said,
You can tell us that one.
Oh, man.
How about you tell us the story about the time that why don't you tell them about the time that we made our prank phone calls?
Oh man, I mean,
You want to tell them about Name My Name?
Name My Name was a pretty good dude. So do you remember? So I went to Ball State, and this was, Lydia, way back when they still had phones that you connected to the wall, right? Cell phones had just came out, so you probably know what all that's about. Anyway, so Jamie and I were sitting in the movie theater, and we were I forget what movie we were going to watch, but I'm like, hey, let's randomly prank phone call some people at Ball State. Because I knew like the first digits, and we just like randomly selected the last 4. Right. And so anyway, we're calling people, and I accidentally, and maybe it was like subliminal, kind of ties back into this movie. I accidentally prank phone called my girlfriend at the time. Right, I've been dating her for like 4 or 5 years, and so she's like,
You accidentally prank?
I accidentally chose the last 4 digits of her phone because she was one of those people. She had a phone that she plugged into the wall, even though she didn't have a cell phone. But anyway, so like I'm like starting to talk to her, and she's just like, "What are you doing?" And she realized this time she realized it was me, and because I had done this to her one other time, and it was on purpose, and I got her, but. Anyway, she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, then I realized who it was because I didn't realize that at that moment. And I'm like, sitting here getting ready to watch a movie with Jamie. And I was like, I just wanted to call and say hi. So
After you did this whole spiel about pretending to be somebody else.
yeah, so I did call her one time, and this one was on purpose, and she picked up, and I was like, "Hi, this is John Smith from Visa, and we've got some suspicious purchases on your credit card." She's like, "Really?" It's like we went. I had her going for a couple minutes before I'm like, "No, I'm just kidding. It's me." But anyway, she
Totally normal activity. Totally normal thing to do.
But the best one, we did this exact same thing, and we prank phone called somebody at Ball State, and I don't know who they thought that I was, but they're like we struck up a conversation, and she's like, "Man, how have you been?" And I'm like, "I've been pretty good. I got something to tell you. I'm joining the military, and I'm getting shipped out." And she's like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe that." And like we had like a 5-minute conversation, and at the end of it, whoever she thought I was getting shipped out to the military. But the best one, there's two more prank phone call stories. We used to do this a lot back in the day.
There's nothing to do in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, so we would prank phone call people, and we used to play a game. It was called Name My Name, and I would start off like a game show host. I'd be like, "You've been selected to play Name My Name," and I'd give them the rules, and I'd like,
He would do like the whole spiel. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like this one guy's like he said something, and I was like, that's incorrect. And he's like, "Man, come on, give me a hint." And I'm like, I broke character. I was like, "All right, what high school did you graduate from?" And he goes, I didn't graduate from high school. So then I jumped back into character, and I was like, "I did." Like that was my hint.
That was his hint. Was mine. His hint was I graduated high school.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, but the best one, hands down, I got this guy on the line, and again, I don't know who he thought I was, but like we were just talking about all kinds of stuff. This is probably close to like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And he had probably been drinking, and I was like, hey man, he's like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, dude, I got a favor to ask you. And he was like, what do you need, man? What do you need? I'll be there. What? I was like, dude, I need to hang some drywall tomorrow. Can you come over and help me? What time do I need to be there? I was like, I want to start pretty early. Can you be here at 7 o'clock in the morning?
What?
And he was
Oh
like,
my
I'll be there, man. I'm gonna be there. We'll get that done. I was like, all right.
He's like, are you still living in the same place? Derek's like, yep.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So we like to imagine that at 7 o'clock in the morning, he goes banging on his buddy's door.
Oh
I
my
wish
god.
I would have known. I wish I would have known who it was and where his buddy lived, because I totally would have shown. I would have not gotten a bit of sleep, and I'd have watched this whole thing across the street.
Wow.
If you were the one that Derek called, comment down below.
Yeah,
You know,
I'd
I
love
had
to
a-
know how that conversation went.
Yeah. I had something like that one time. We were doing prank calls, and usually they didn't go anywhere. Like, for whatever reason, we weren't very good at it or something. But
We were masters. Yeah.
Yeah, we got
so-
pretty good at it.
one time we got through to this woman, sounded like a mom or something somewhere, you know, and she was like, oh, did you guys make it there already? And we were like, yeah, you know, we're all like snickering and giggling and stuff. And she was like, oh, you kids are so funny. And like, you know, just let me know when you make it there or whatever. You know, she just kept going on. And we talked to this woman for so long. Like, we were just a group of her kids or something. And I was like, I wonder who she was talking about. Like, they were like going skiing or something, you know, like they were going up to a ski resort or something like that. I'm like, where did we just call? Like, what area code did we dial? Like, we were just like pressing numbers.
Charge.
So-
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's great. One more before we hit the road. We used to have this spoof number. So what would happen is you would dial this number and you could make appear what, like on people's caller ID, whatever number you input. So you can make it so like I could call you from Derek's number to look like Derek called.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was this spoof thing that we had. So this one night we just were really bored and we decided to, I'm sorry if you guys are listening, but we decided to call our high school teachers from other high school teachers' numbers.
From the principal's
Oh my
phone
gosh.
number. We called like 4 or 5 teachers and made it.
we
look
called
like
the art teacher, Mr. Applegate, and Derek asked him if he wanted to draw art on his belly. We called Coach Hobbs, and
Yeah.
Derek actually pretended to be our
of
friend
course.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But the best one is we kept calling everybody from Brimberry's number, didn't we?
Yeah, the principal at the time.
Yeah. So we just kept calling everybody from there. So we called Brim back, and he's like, "Why does everybody keep calling here?"
He's so mad.
So they were 100% calling the number back, and just let them do it.
Like, Brimberry, what's going on in your house, man?
Oh my god.
Classic.
Oh, good times, man. Good times.
Kids, you can't do that now, but you could in the early 90s. So don't do it now. But in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was the way to go. Also, we used to do the whole CB radio thing, the candy cane, which don't do because if you watch,
Rusty Nail.
yeah, if you watch Joyride, it's bad news.
That's my favorite.
We'll do that one here soon. All right, guys, that's our show. Thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to comment down below, like, share, and subscribe. Keep those comments coming. We're getting more comments. Keep them coming. Helps the channel grow. Give us some suggestions on what movies we want to do next. And what do you guys think of Stir of Echoes? And were you one of the people that we prank phone called in the early 2000s? Let us know. You can follow us online at HiLa Productions. You can find us on social media. Find us on Facebook at HiLa Productions, Instagram at Screenplay Movies, and you can follow each of us on Twitter. You can follow Lydia at Lydia Spooky, Follow Derek at DDogleymaster. And you can follow me at Racket. We'll have some movie news coming up for you probably next episode. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, be sure to watch Sick on Peacock. And for Derek Lemaster and Lydia Judy, I'm Jamie Hiles. And remember, if you're going to scream bloody movies.